Hey everybody, it's good to see a few of you who have already been in the chat here. Matt, Crystal, Lincoln, if he's still awake, I don't know. Jason, good to see you in a different kind of context. I'm usually checking out and talking to Jason. Not checking out Jason, that sounds strange. I'm talking to Jason usually on Twitter, but Jason, good to see you here as well. I know there's a few others, at least a few others who are coming as well. Hey, excited that you're here, and I hope that some of you are willing and ready, or will be ready later in the show, to share some of the things that you are most thankful about when it comes to Disney. Now, of course, that could be about Walt Disney World. It could involve Walt Disney, all the movies. That is a wide concept right now, right? That is a topic that covers a lot of ground. So I hope that you're ready tonight to share some of your favorite things as we get into my 10 favorite, or 10 things that at least I came up with now, things that I really like, or am most thankful for as far as Disney is concerned. And of course, we're in a time right now that is really, it's not something that hasn't happened before in terms of people who say bad things about the Disney company, especially on Twitter. That's kind of the joke, but it's true. More on Twitter than on Facebook. People are pretty negative a lot of times about Disney, especially, of course, there's currently that petition right now to get rid of Bob, the CEO. So anyways, there's a lot of negativity, things that we could say are bad about Disney or that we don't like about it. But today we're going to focus on the things that we do like. Before we get into those 10 things that I'm going to talk about, and then you can add your stuff in the chat, I want to just mention just some kind of recaps, and then a little bit later in the show I'll give you some stuff to look forward to in terms of Beyond the Pixie Dust. This month, if you didn't know, we actually normally have a schedule where an episode comes out every other week. But this past month, we've actually been putting out an episode every single week, every single Monday. So we actually had China Thompson early this month. She is currently with the Disney Institute. We then had an episode with Stephen Barr from Cast Member Church, a really great sit down with him at Disney Springs. There was an episode where I was at Mickey's Runaway Railway talking about out of control life and how to kind of deal with the craziness of life, and how do we get through the day to day of some of the hardships in life. And then just this past Monday, just yesterday, we put out an episode with the Castle Run, who is Lisa Denoto Glassner. And we talked about her father's death and grief and fulfillment. She graduated Harvard and was a law student, and then actually became a successful attorney. And as you'll hear in yesterday's episode, she gave all that up, moved to Walt Disney World, has an interesting story. And so all of that came out this month. Of course, we still have one Monday to go. And I think later on, I'm gonna share with you later on in the podcast, kind of looking forward to this next month, not only next Monday, but also share with you some really exciting stuff about what's going to be coming. Probably, I would definitely have to say the biggest episodes that we've ever had are coming in December. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm going to share it with you after I talk through my first 5. So Hannah, thank you for coming in. Hannah is a newer fan of Beyond the Pixie Dust, but I think maybe you joined Hannah sometime around the time of my Disney trip, actually, back last October, so about a month ago. Matthew points out about the candles. Yeah, we mentioned this on last Monday's show with Lisa Glassner, but she actually has on thecastlerun.com, you can see she not only does a blog and talks about running with Disney, but she also has set up a candle company as well. And Matthew, I guess you've actually bought some. The thing is, I actually have had one candle in the past that was a Disney candle. It was Haunted Mansion themed. It wasn't from Lisa, but I forget what company it was from. But I didn't really necessarily get a Haunted Mansion vibe from the candle itself that I did buy. Again, not from Lisa, from someone else. It was more just like a flowery smell. But what's interesting is, Lisa's is called Core Memory Candles, and some of these companies, and Jason and I were just talking about another one over on Twitter the other day. Some of the companies actually have candles that really smell like the attractions, to the point where
one company makes pirate water, which actually smells like the bromine water from Pirates of the Caribbean. So, I mean, I love those smells. I'm not sure if I want my house to smell like the water in Pirates of the Caribbean. But primarily, if I were single and living by myself, I probably would get that, but I don't think my wife would appreciate it very much if I lit a candle that smelled like Pirates of the Caribbean water. So, yeah, Hannah's trying to make out the books in the back. She says, I see all the Harry Potters. I guess those are, let's see, like a mirror. So they're all in this area. They're easy to spot. Maybe some week we'll go through some of my book selections. Disney is a lot of my Disney books are on the top shelf there. And some on the second shelf as well. But anyways, Matt says about, and this is about candles, he says, we've had a couple bright suns, which of course would be a link to, I almost said Pandora, would be a link to Star Wars Batuu, Galaxy's Edge candle. Main Street, really good. You can smell the popcorn. That was the one that interested me the most, probably. And then Jumbo House, which of course is the Animal Kingdom resort link. Nice. So I have not tried any of hers because I just found out more recently she has candles. So it's pretty exciting. Let me drink out of my Disneyland mug here real quick. All right. So yeah, keep it up with the comments and things. I'll put some and I'll remember to look back in the midst of my ramblings. But so I'm going to go through starting with 10 because it seems more exciting if you start at 10 and then go down to 1. But I tried to put these kind of, for the most part, in a specific order of like leading to the most meaningful specifically or most thankful for me. Although I feel bad then saying number 10 because it seems like, well, this is the least of all. I'm the least thankful about this one. But that's not necessarily the case. But number 10, I wanted to make sure I mentioned Walt Disney himself as an individual, as a human being. Now, I know probably some people are like, hey, you should have put him further down on the list, like he should be closer to number 1. However, I don't know. It just maybe it's good because he's the first thing that came to mind, right? The first thing that I wanted to write down when I wrote number 10. So Walt Disney himself as a person, and I've written a little bit about this in the book that I came out with earlier this year, Beyond the Pixie Dust. But I love what my friend Mike said years ago. He talked about this idea of the factor of 1, and this idea that if you add one person to any equation or you take one person away from any equation in life, the end result changes in ways that we can never even expect or comprehend. So like you think of your family, if you're a family of 3 or a family of 4, like if you wouldn't have had one of your kids, or if you wouldn't have ever even got married, but think of how different it is if one person is added to a gathering or one person is taken away. And so to think of a world without Walt Disney, of course we think about, okay, Walt Disney, we wouldn't have Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, we wouldn't have, the films, we probably wouldn't have even a lot of the Pixar stuff, Toy Story, right? I mean, those things. But that's not even, we usually, in the theme parks, we think of the Disney related stuff we wouldn't have. But I believe, and I'm pretty sure this would be correct, we wouldn't even have rival theme parks like Universal Studios. Of course, that's, across the way. It has nothing to do with financially. It's not governed by the same people as Disney. But I don't even think Universal Studios would exist if it wasn't for Walt Disney and his vision of Disneyland and of pushing the boundaries, of being willing to take risks on Snow White. And again, I always go back to Snow White. I do that several times in the book. And in the second book I'm writing, I start out with a Snow White type thing too, because I think it's not so much that Snow White is my favorite movie by any means. It's fine, but it's not my favorite. But the reason I talk so much about Snow White is because it was the catalyst for much that followed. If Walt had not followed through with Snow White, if he would have said, oh, it's too overwhelming, you know what, people don't believe in me. He had some family members who didn't believe in him, and I won't give it away. You can look it up, the story, but also I write about that here. If he would have listened to them, again, the world would be totally different. But he had this view, this dream, and any dream that he had, he just continued to push forward in. Here's Hannah is the first one to put in her own
She's made her own top 10 list. And so she says number 10 on her list would be the Disney cruise. Oh, and I just saw she just popped up with another comment on her others. So I won't look at those yet. Maybe I'll refer back to her list and see what she has. So number 10 for Hannah would be the Disney cruise, which is great. I don't know how many of you out there have been on Disney Cruise Line. It is not something that I said in my list, although I love Disney Cruise. So anybody else been on Disney Cruise, you can share your sympathies or thoughts with Hannah there. So Jason says about this, if it weren't about Walt Disney, Busch Gardens and other garden type parks would be around, I think, though. Yeah, any type of like amusement park. I live, of course, near Cedar Point, which even if you aren't in the Ohio area, you live in Florida, Texas, Kansas, wherever, most people have heard of Cedar Point if you haven't been there, because they have, the fastest roller coasters in the world, the highest roller coasters in the world. But it is an amusement park. It is all about the fastest, the best, all of that. So yeah, I know, of course we even know that famous story of Walt sitting and eating peanuts on a bench, and his girls were riding the carousel. So, these rides existed, but as far as theme parks, like that next level to amusement parks, theme park type thing, I doubt it would have existed. I really don't. Matt says, Walt would easily be one of my top 3 people that I would love to be able to insert into any and every situation we face as mankind, just for his input. Yeah, and that's true, because there are so many other people that I respect, that I think highly of. But it's interesting that you say that, because again, it almost seems like, and maybe to be honest and to be fair, maybe it's because he's so legendary now that I would say this, but I would agree with you to say, hey, just anywhere. He seems to fit, and like I feel like I could trust his wisdom in any scenario. but are we just like, 40, 50 years after his death, are we like now just kind of, has he achieved legendary status that we're like just putting that on him? I don't know. All right. So anyways, so yeah, there's so many things we could talk about Walt, and we do, and so many stories and different things about that. But I'll move on to number 9. And number 9, some of these that I have are maybe could be more general. They're just one word, and then I'll explain what I mean. Number 9 for me of thankful things about Disney would be inspiration. And there's some overlap here with what we talked about with Walt Disney already. But I think about how many people have been inspired to follow their dreams because of Disney as a company. Not even, yes, Walt Disney, but also even just as a company, hearing and growing up with a dream is a wish your heart makes, hearing these songs and the stories, and, feeling like they can do what they've seen in the films, or, the inspiration. So that word, inspiration. How many people have been inspired to follow their dreams because of something they experienced, whether it was in the parks or through the films or through a song, or even just by reading about Walt Disney himself? So this is, not that I want to keep referencing my book, but I tell a lot of the stories that I tell in the book are things that come to my mind. And so there's something that I talk about in the book that I'm not sure if some of you may not be familiar with. And it relates to inspiration. So I want to tell the story to you now. There's this guy named Judge Alfred Nippert. And he inherited a piece of land, a plot of land called Gamble Place. Now, you may not be familiar with it. It's in Florida, not too far from Disney property, into Orange County. It still exists today. Unfortunately, it's got a little run down. They haven't kept up with it as much as they should have. But some time ago, around the time that Snow White came out, this true story, Alfred Nippert and his wife, they were Disney fans. They liked Walt Disney and what he was doing. Of course, he was alive at the time. He was about to come out with the first full-length animated feature, Snow White. And Albert's wife passed away. His wife died. And they were really looking forward to the opportunity to go see this full-length feature film together. So, of course, when she died,
he picked up the slack. He said, well, I still got to go. My wife's not here with me, but I'm going to go, and I'm going to go to see Snow White. So this judge, who had inherited this land, Gamble Place, he went, he saw the movie. Just like a lot of people in that time, it was, again, the first hour-and-a-half long cartoon, animated feature ever. Most people thought it would fail, but everybody loved it, including Alfred Nippert. And so he goes back home, he has all this land, and he thinks, it's so good, I think I'm going to build a playhouse for my nieces. And so he starts getting some plans together. He's good at building, and he gets some plans together for this playhouse. But as he starts to plan this little playhouse for his kids, for his nieces, based upon Snow White, he realizes he wants to go bigger. And so he actually built on his land a full-scale model of the Seven Dwarfs cottage. Not only that, but he built a wishing well from Snow White, a full-scale wishing well. He built the witch's hut. He also built a diamond mine right on his property. He built all of these things in real life to scale. So in the cottage, you could actually go up to the second floor of the dwarf's cottage and see the 7 beds laid out with the names on the beds. So what's really fascinating, we know all of that is 100% fact, history. Again, it's still there now. It's just unfortunately run down. But what's really interesting is that we know Walt Disney visited Judge Alfred Nippert's property. He saw with his own eyes the cottage shortly after Snow White. He saw these things. Now, the sad thing is we don't know much about his visit. We don't know what he said to Alfred. We don't know his thoughts following it. He never wrote something down about it. We do know that he sent he had the Disney company send 7 stuffed dwarves, life-size dwarves, to Judge Alfred Nippert, and the judge put them inside the cottage. So we know that he was there. We see the evidence of him, sending these gifts. Hey, thanks for it. But what some theorize, which is interesting, is that when Walt visited that property in Florida, based upon the invitation from Alfred Nippert, it was before Disneyland was built, of course. It was built. It was that visit to Alfred's property was before his daughters were born. So in other words, that story we often hear about, Walt was sitting on the bench eating peanuts and he thought, hey, a place should be built, and that was the beginning of Disneyland. We know that's not fully the case because his first drawn plans were a few years before he sat on the bench. But what's even more interesting, some theorize that because of Walt's experience there, it was probably the first time Walt had actually been inside one of his stories in that kind of a way. Of course, he built models for animated films. He'd, done all sorts of things like that. But this would have been the first time, theoretically, that he actually stepped into, like, the Seven Dwarfs cottage, like stepped into one of his stories. And so, as the legend then goes, that we don't know for sure, that then inspired him, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could step into other stories, the idea for Disneyland? And ultimately, when he thought, let's think of some more expanse, where did he think of? Well, Florida, not too far from the judge's property. So some of it, that final piece, is just conjecture. We don't know because he never wrote on it. But it's really interesting to think about. And again, I have like a whole chapter that talks about it in the book because it's just something that's really interesting about getting into the story. But all that to say, we know that the judge was inspired by Walt, and it's possible that Walt was inspired then by the judge and what he was doing. He at least was really excited about it because he sent the dwarfs to him. So I want to ask all of you who are out there now, how have you been inspired by Disney? Is there stuff that you've found inspiration in some way? Maybe you've started a project. Maybe you decided to get a job because you were inspired by a story of Walt and you decided to just go for it. What is it that you are inspired to do? Hannah says, it's my dream to follow the footsteps of the late Cameron Boyce. Now, I don't know who that is. Hannah, you'll have to tell us more about that. I'm not sure who Cameron is. And I probably should. I probably should know who that is, but I don't know. Let me go back to Hannah's other list. She says number 9, the Disney parks. In general, but I like it, and I'm going to have some overlap with that a little bit later. If anybody has thoughts on, let me click on something over here real quick. I'm going to try to pull up
on my other screen, something I need for just in a moment. Yeah. Okay. So so number 8, and you guys can continue to put if you've been inspired by something at Disney, put it in there. I'm going to read Matt's comment now. Our Disney community married to a Disney addict. It allows my wife and I to come closer together over our shared love of Disney. Yeah, absolutely. And for anybody who's kind of new to Beyond the Pixie Dust, we did an interview with Matt and his wife Crystal. I'm pulling up to make sure I know what number it was. I can reference it to you. So our podcast is on Spotify or on any podcast app. The interview with them was number 14. So you could go to 14 and listen to Matt and Crystal and their story, and exactly they talk about exactly this, just coming closer through their shared love of Disney, and not only to each other but to a community as well that they've begun. Jason says, I really want to get into voice acting and voice a Disney character. And there's his YouTube page right there. I invite everybody to subscribe. Please do. Jason R. Being on YouTube. Check out his stuff and encourage him in doing that, because I know, Jason, you've been a little bit hesitant. You're like, I'm not sure, but I think you need to get into it. I think you need to take some risks and, just give it a try. Definitely continue making those videos and keep moving forward in that. Hannah says, Cameron is my favorite actor. He passed away on July 6, 2018. I'll need to look him up because I'm sure I've probably seen him in something, but just by the name, I don't recognize, but that doesn't mean I haven't seen him. So I'm gonna definitely check that out. But that tells me now, Hannah, to go back to your other comment, it's your dream to be an actress then. And again, however you do that, start to pursue, go after that, see, where that will lead you. Take some acting classes, whatever the next step is. Take that step today. Be inspired to do that. Okay, so number 8, and you can continue to put your stuff in the comments if you have it. Number 8 that I'm thankful for is Imagineering. Imagineering, it's a big coverall, but again, to think of being inside of a story, what Imagineering has done, of course, my favorite ride is the Haunted Mansion. You see some of the pop stuff up there from Haunted Mansion. It's always hard to point with looking at the video and trying to, it's right in here. But anyways, with Imagineering, I can now explore the Haunted Mansion on the hill, right? I mean, I've been to a lot of abandoned places in my life, but nothing ever really happens in those places. You just explore and you have your flashlight and you scare your friends. But the Haunted Mansion gives you the chance to have that classic, ooh, there's a spooky house and something creepy might happen. Sure enough, of course, we know it's not real, but right, it's like something happened when I went in. I saw some flickering lights and there was a voice and here's a rattling coffin, and it's just really that they give us those experiences. They give us the chance to live those stories. They give us, for Star Wars fans who just for years just people wrote fan fictions and they read all the books and they watched the cartoons and they they did everything they could. They read the comic books and the movies, of course. They even dressed up. People dressed up and went into the 501st, which is like a professional Star Wars costuming club, essentially. People did that, but what has happened now with Batu? Imagineers have given us the chance to actually visit a planet in Star Wars. I mean, to visit a planet in the galaxy of Star Wars. It's something that was never a possibility, or would never be a possibility beyond Imagineering. So yeah, whacking into Batu and seeing the Falcon, great moment. You actually, seeing so many movies with the Millennium Falcon, but then actually walking up and there it is, a full scale Millennium Falcon in front of you. That's a whole different type of thing. So Jason, that's awesome. Thanks for pointing out. Hannah, make sure you check out Jason's comment there. He says, if you ever need any advice for acting, he went to school for theater and he has a BA in theater and acting. So definitely, that's another great thing. Matt was just talking about with his community through Married to a Disney Addict. That's exactly what we're able to do here too. Resource each other. That's the whole idea about these communities. And I'm going to get back to that. So I don't want to say too much more on that, but we'll get back to that in a little bit. Okay, so when we're talking about Imagineering and all of these attractions, these worlds, these lands, what we're really talking about again is becoming a part of the story ourselves, like Walt was able to do, like Alfred Nippert was able to do on his property. They're giving us the chance to be a part of the story, and for that, Imagineering, I'm just so thankful for their presence in the world. And even Imagineers, once they finish at Disney, it's not the end of the story. they go on to do other types of amazing things. I don't have it right in front of me anymore, but we have a 2-part episode where we talk to Imagineer, a former Imagineer named Mel McGowan, and he talked about building, out at California Adventure and all of the stuff that went along with that. But now he doesn't do that anymore. But he's still using what he learned to invite people into deeper stories in the businesses and the places that he connects with. So yeah, I'm really thankful for, again, it kind of goes back to Walt, just building this Imagineering process, and what we saw originally as like 6 old men, and we saw or the 9 old men, I should say, Walt, and it was kind of a small team. Now we have lots of Imagineers, but they're all doing these really amazing things. So thankful for Imagineering. Number 7, I have to hand it to a guy who many of you are familiar with. I know Matt and Crystal are, but I have to hand this one, I don't know if it's the credit necessarily, but I guess it's some of the credit. I have to hand some of the credit over to Lou Mongello from WW Radio for this next one. Number 7 would be, I'm thankful for the food at the parks. And not that Lou Mongello from WW Radio made me aware that there was food at the parks or anything, but I think to some degree, until I really started to listen to some of his episodes that opened up my eyes to certain places on property to eat and certain kinds of foods that he talked about and what there was, I didn't realize how wide of a variety there really is. And so when you go there, you can be really picky and find things that you like. You can be really, you can have, want to eat culinary delights from all over the world, and you can find that right at Epcot or other places. And so the food, for me, I know some people have their favorite places, and I want to hear maybe your favorite places, because then that's going to give me ideas of where to go. So if you have a favorite restaurant at Disney, please let me know, because it doesn't have to be in the parks. It could be at a resort, because that's interesting to me, is to check out resorts I haven't been to, and try the restaurants there. But what's interesting for me, as I wait for your responses on favorite restaurants, is not so much, I don't really have necessarily a favorite restaurant. I love to go here every single time. I got to have this dish at this place. It's more, each time I go, I look for unique items. And it could be anywhere. But before I go, I'm usually kind of researching and figuring out what's some new stuff that's out, what's a place that I haven't tried and what would I like to get there. And so this past trip, there were a few items that I put on that radar. One of them was actually Disney Springs. It's called the Funky Chicken, which I know is a pretty popular item, and now I know why. It's an Everglazed, which I think people would pass over if they didn't know it was there. The sign has a big donut on it. It has cold brew. So if you were hungry for a donut or coffee, of course you're going to go in. You're going to get that. But if you're thinking I'm ready for lunch, you're not necessarily going to go into a donut place. But Everglazed has, I would say, with the Funky Chicken, and there's a couple of variations on it, they have the best chicken sandwich that is on Disney property. Maybe the best that I've had ever. I have to try it again, maybe, to really know for sure. But what's interesting is with the Funky Chicken sandwich at Everglazed, you can either have a regular bun or you can switch it out for a donut as a bun, which I did not do because I already like more savory than sweet, so I wasn't sure I wanted the donut. But I wouldn't be against trying it sometime. So those types of things, I always look for unique items and seek those out, especially at Epcot World Showcase, rather than I gotta go to Casey's Corner. I know some people always go there, or wherever else. Matt says California Grill is our favorite. Always have to go. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah. That's a very popular one as well. Jason says Kona Cafe at Poly and Coral Reef. At Epcot, we want to try the lobster bisque in a bread bowl at Les Halles in the France Pavilion. Oh, that sounds good. And again, that's something that I haven't heard. So that's something that I'm going to need to remember on my next trip, which will be early February, because I'll be there for, I believe, in the parks for 7 days, and then a free day halfway through, which is the 8th day. So, but these are the types of things. I hope the dining plan is back by then. And those are the types of things I'm like, oh, I got to remember to go to France and check that out. Also, like Topolino's Steakhouse 71, which they just tried. Homecoming, Yak and Yeti, frying fish. Man, Le Cellier, Via Napoli, and so many more. See, the thing about Matt and Crystal, if you're new to the show or new to them in general, like they go like every other day. Somehow they're teachers at a school, but they also like go to Disney. Like I think they get out of school and then they just fly down to Disney in the afternoon and then they fly. I don't know how they do it, but they're so often like it's insane. They don't live in Florida. I don't know how they do it. Every restaurant is my favorite at Disney parks. Hannah, that's a good point. I mean, that's the thing too. Like, you can't go wrong with the food there. Even if you just get a generic, if you just get fries, that's at every place, right? Every amusement park has fries. But I'm pretty sure the fries at Walt Disney World are the best anywhere. And thankfully, at least I think so, they have the exact same fries at Walt Disney World that they do on the cruise line. And the great thing about the cruise line is they're unlimited. So you can just keep going and getting more fries all day long. And you can go to the movie theater and bring in a bunch of fries and just eat them as you watch like Star Wars, like I did this last time. So yeah, absolutely. The lobster bisque in the bread bowl is only $5.50. Now I was going to ask you how big it is, but then I'm like, well, I guess you can type in how big it is. But I was like, is it this big? Like, and so yeah, that's pretty good because again, like Panera Bread around here and stuff, which has bread bowls, that's like a similar type of price. So the food on Disney Cruise Line as a whole, yeah, it's its whole other thing. But I guess I could cover that too, like the food at the parks and the food at the cruise line. It's all like top quality is the bottom line that kind of holds that all together. I want to eat at the restaurant that has a Frozen theme on the Disney Wish cruise. I feel like Matt will have to help me out with this one. I'm not sure exactly which one you're talking about, but I haven't been on the Disney Wish, so I just may not know about it off the top of my head. Okay. So I forgot to go back and look at Hannah's list here. I gotta like scroll back now because I wanted to kind of reference her list and see her thoughts. She had number 8 as beloved Disney songs. I think I'm going to kind of overlap with that in a minute. Number 7, just being a fan to Disney, just generally being a fan. And then her number 6 is Disney movies. So let me get into my number 6 now. Uh-oh, whoops. I don't know what I'm doing now. I'm messing it up. I'm just clicking on all the comments. Okay, my number 6 would be the entertainment specifically at the parks. So I'm not talking about movies right now. I'm talking about just the entertainment at the parks. And I know right now it's been scaled way down in a lot of ways. We have Cavalades, but I think I got to experience the Cavalades, and it was a different kind of a thing. It was exciting in a different kind of way because you didn't know when it was going to happen. And I know anybody who's experienced it knows this already, has the same kind of review of it. But you just be walking around and you just hear music start. And I wonder which one it's going to be because there's different Cavalades that come through. So one's, with the princesses, one might be Gaston walking, and there was one with Winnie the Pooh. So you don't know who's going to be coming and when they're going to be coming. It just kind of pops up, and you see them, and they go by, and then you continue on. You don't have to sit there for 45 minutes to get a good shaded seat on Main Street, and then wait for it to get to you, and then everybody goes by, and your kids are crying or whatever. It's more like, hey, there it was, real quick. That was really fun. Now we're going to continue on to lunch or whatever it is. I'm excited about parades returning, but at the exact same time, I'm getting distracted because a little thing came up from Jason, who is in here, but he also just sent me on Twitter a picture of the lobster bread bowl, and now I'm like just was staring at it. And so, Jason, you're getting me off track. The Cavalades, I actually did like. So whether it's the Cavalades or the full parades, which I can't wait for those to come back as well, or ultimately, kind of the biggest thing for me in terms of entertainment would be, yes, Epcot, which is now Harmonious, but more so, the classic picture of entertainment for me is that castle projection show, the fireworks show, of course, now Enchantment. I remember, when I first started when I first went to Walt Disney World in 1996, of course, it was just fireworks, which was great. That's all there was at the time. You know, we didn't know any better. But I remember, I don't know how many years ago now because I've been on so many trips, but whenever, you know, it was that I saw for the first time one of those projection shows. I mean, it's like I couldn't even really comprehend in my mind what was happening. Like to actually see, it was during Christmas time, and so they had the Christmas projection type stuff. And so like the castle was turning into a gingerbread house. And we know it's projections, but to actually see that for especially the first time or even second or third time, it's just unbelievable. And you know, it's like it's just crazy to actually see that happening, to see the transformation. And once again, to go back to what I said earlier, like with Walt Disney inspiring other places, what do we see? I haven't been to Universal in a long time, Universal Studios, but I just saw a video the other day that Universal Studios has now copied Walt Disney World, and on their Hogwarts castle, they're having a projection show, which I'm sure is great, which I'm sure is amazing, but they copied Disney again. So without Disney, you don't have the Hogwarts projection show, right? So yeah, the entertainment is just so great, and Disney has that high quality of doing it. Again, my focus mostly is on being thankful and not saying like things that I'm sad aren't around. But I will say I hope that they will increase a little bit more of some of that street theater, or if you want to call it, or things that used to happen a little more randomly. So I know there were a lot in Epcot. There were some in Hollywood Studios, especially on Hollywood Boulevard. But just to have people out that were playing roles in addition to the live entertainment that you would see in shows as well. So I hope some of that comes back at some point into the future. Yeah, Disney, Matt says, is definitely the industry leader. And he says, we love watching the Magic Kingdom fireworks from the top of the World Lounge at the Bay Lake Tower. Hoping it comes back soon. Yeah, now, I have never actually been up there to see that. It would be definitely an interesting, totally different perspective. Definitely one of those things that you want to do at least once in your life. That's absolutely for sure. And you know what? I know this is probably a bad thing, but I also have never seen the electrical, how many of them can be able to say it right, which is even worse. The electrical, somebody help me out here. The electrical pageant that goes in the water pageant. Yeah, I've never seen it. I guess because I'm always in the parks and I'm seeing what's happening in the parks. I've never gone out of the parks to watch that go by. I probably should at some part. Yeah, water pageant. Okay, I guess I eventually got it. I mean, like overlapping several things into one thing by saying electrical. But Hannah's dream is to see the fireworks and light show. Yeah, I know Hannah was saying when I was down there commenting on a lot of the stuff that you don't have plans yet, Hannah, right? Like you don't have like, hey, I'm trying to go this year, but you're just saying in the future, that's your dream to kind of get down there and see everything with your own eyes because you're a big fan. All right. So before I look at the last five, before I move on to the other five, okay, Jason says the best place to see the water pageant is on the beach at the Poly. And Matt has another food idea here. You need to go grab a bison burger over Wilderness Lodge, sit by the water, and watch the pageant. Oh, now we have some overlap. Wow, okay, so if there's food involved, and you know what? I just visited Wilderness Lodge my last trip. I wasn't staying there. I was trying to be as cheap as possible, so I stayed at All Star Movies. But I went in and checked out Wilderness Lodge, and it was amazing. I'd never been there. I always wanted to. It was great. So I am all on board with that. That's absolutely, yeah, I'm going to have to do that on my off day. Maybe I'll go and get the bison burger, go to Wilderness Lodge, sit by the water. The only problem is, of course, well, actually, I guess I can take my daughter with me because I was like, I have kids, so I can't like do everything on my own, but I have to try to make sure I figure that out. But some of the nighttime things I have to give up because they would just be too tired at some point. Okay, Hannah's planning on going with Disney World next year. Awesome. Yeah. Oh, and Matt, that's your DVC home favorite resort. Awesome. Yeah, it's really, really cool. It's the first time I've been in there, but really unique. Even just approaching it from the parking lot, it looks like it's in the middle of the woods. I mean, it just has a feel to it that's really cool. Okay, so let me say, as you guys are continuing, before I read more comments or anything like that, I want to tell you about what's coming within the next month. So these are some exciting announcements. The one, for those of you who were here last month, you'll know that you'll recognize the name that I'm going to tell you for this coming Monday. November 29th, we will have Jeff Dixon, an interview with Jeff Dixon. So he is the author of the Keys to the Kingdom series. There are now 5 of those books out, with a 6th on the way. And he's also written 2 nonfiction books, but he's most famous for his fiction books, Keys to the Kingdom. That's the first one, is called Key to the Kingdom. And it's, as we talked about in the podcast, he, even though it's fiction, so it's a made-up story, he refers to it as faction, because he uses a lot of behind the scenes and actual Disney details from the parks in order to tell the story. So when you're reading it, you could actually go into the parks and actually find the things that he's actually talking about in the fictional story. And his stories are, I would probably classify them as thrillers, because I mean, there are murders that happen during the course of the books. I'm not going to give too much away. But like I told him when I recorded with him, and he agreed, I said, it's kind of like, almost like a Disney National Treasure. The books are like that. Like there's some thing that has been hidden from this main character, Grayson Hawkes, and he needs to follow these clues that are actually really in the Disney parks, and that you could go look for yourself. He has to follow the Disney details that lead him from one to the next until he discovers what that is, and thwarts evil. And again, you'll have to read it to really get into it. But we're gonna meet. I'm gonna have an interview with him this Monday, and then we'll be back on kind of a regular schedule for December. So I have a couple exciting announcements for that. I'll tell you about, I guess, the least exciting of them, because this is just me, so it's not as exciting. But we're going to put out an extra episode next month on December 23rd, so a few days before Christmas. This will be recorded, will be in Epcot World Showcase in Italy, and will also feature a recording of one of the holiday storytellers. If you've been there before, you may have heard her. The holiday storyteller in Italy is La Befana. It's my absolute favorite of all the storytellers because of the story itself and because it's just so compelling. So I'm going to put that out, a recording of her story, recorded from World Showcase on December 23rd, and then I'll also have a little comment after that, like kind of continue to talk about that story on the podcast on the 23rd. Oh, nice. I just now saw this. Crystal loves that series, and Hannah remembers the books from Jeff Dixon. So that's awesome. So in addition to that, which again is the least exciting because it's kind of just me and a recording of La Befana, but we also have 2 other episodes that are coming out. And on December 13th, we're going to have an interview with an actual Disney legend. So this will be the first Disney legend on our podcast. We've had Imagineers, but this Disney legend actually was hired by Walt. Let's see if anybody can guess. I'll give you a few clues. He was hired by Walt after essentially convincing Walt Disney to hire him. He was hired at age 12. Don't cheat and go on Google and be like typing this stuff in. Actually guess if you know it. I'm guessing someone in here may know the answer. He was hired at age 12. I know there's a delay, so I don't want to give too many clues before I see it come up. This guy worked primarily initially as a 12-year-old on Tom Sawyer Island as Tom Sawyer. So Walt did not think that there necessarily needed to be a Tom Sawyer running around on Tom Sawyer Island character. But this guy, who I guess nobody knows his name, I will tell you his name is Tom Nabby. So he's a Disney legend. He's obviously older now, but he was hired at age 12 by Walt Disney after consistently asking Walt for a job in person. Walt gave him the job. Walt was thinking, hey, why don't I just put, why do we need an actual person to play Tom Sawyer? And basically Tom Nabby talked him into it. And there's a lot of interesting stuff that you'll hear in that episode, where you'll hear about you used to be able to actually fish on Tom Sawyer Island and actually catch fish, and it wasn't a catch and release. You got to keep the fish, and you could send them to the front of the park and actually bring them home with you afterwards. So I don't want to give it all away, and then there's no reason for you to listen, but this is going to be really exciting on December 13th with Tom Nabby, again, Disney legend that played Tom Sawyer originally. Also, we will have another Imagineer on December 27th. So there's an interview on December 27th with McNair Wilson, and he's done a lot of things. He's now retired from the Walt Disney Company, but as far as I'm concerned, because it's my favorite thing that he did, my favorite thing that McNair did was he was on the team that launched the Tower of Terror. So he was one of the ones that kind of came up with the concept, put it forward, and so he's done so many other things. He was instrumental in coming up with the concept for Downtown Disney before it was Disney Springs. I mean, there are so many things, and he's one of those guys that just, you know, you could ask him a question and he'll just tell a story about what it was like to work for Imagineering forever and ever. So this guy, we're going to have him at the end of next month. As well, a few days after Christmas, actually. It just so happens that that's the kind of the schedule of the every other week. So we will have those interviews out. Megan, now I just realized that you're here. You weren't commenting, but you posted his name on some Facebook group, but I can't remember. Yeah, I think maybe in the like administrators page that you're a part of. I think you saw that. Hannah's feeling Disney magic right now, so that's good. I guess that's thanks to this live stream. Matt, I'm going to go back to his stuff. He says, we celebrate La Befana at our house, the Italian Christmas witch. I don't know whether he's lying or not. I have no idea. I fully believe that that's possible, but I don't know for sure. I don't know. Do you actually do that, or do you celebrate Santa at your house, Matt? Or both? All right. I'm going to move on to my final five. My final five things, and if any of you have more, I'm going to scroll back up now, and I'm going to see, let's see, Hannah, what do you got here? Number five for Hannah is the same as number 6. She really loves Disney movies, because she loves number 6 is Disney movies, number 5 is Disney movies, and Hannah, number 5 for me is the films. It's Disney movies. So I'm having a hard time finding your comments. So let me read through your other ones so I don't have to scroll back up later. 4, Disney Channel. 3, as you told us, your actor, the actor you like, Cameron Boyce. 2, Disney Plus. Yeah, great one. And number 1, Friends at Work at Disney. Friends that work at Disney Parks. That's awesome. Okay, so Matt, they talk about Santa and La Befana. And yeah, and I know from talking to you guys before that you have 100% Italian blood, so that makes sense. Okay, awesome. Well, so let me tell you, as I said, number 5 is for me in terms of things I'm thankful for with Disney is the films, are the films. And of course, when I talk about that, here I have some here, of some of my favorites. Of course, the classics, like for me, the classics aren't necessarily Snow White because, you know, I wasn't growing up when those first came out. I watched them, but they weren't brand new. So for me, the classics are like Aladdin, right? And I know that's probably true for some of you here too. Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, and then eventually, you know, 1995, Toy Story. Those are classics, like those ones are the ones that I'm thankful for, because this will sound cheesy to certain people. I don't think anybody who's been commenting here, but to certain circles, it will sound stupid or whatever. But, you know, these types of films are fundamental to the person that I am today. You know, because I watched these films so many times growing up, there's no way that they didn't impact the person that I am today. I mean, obviously they did, in the sense that I'm doing a Disney podcast and I do a live Disney show and I wrote a Disney book. Like, yeah, I get all of that. But even more, like on a core level, like honestly, like sometimes when I'm putting my daughter's toys away, or like we have to give a toy away to Goodwill, like there's like a little moment in the back of my mind where I'm like, oh, I feel sad. Like, what if the toy's sad? It's leaving. I'm like, wait, no, that's just Toy Story. Like, but seriously, like honestly, like sometimes that goes through my mind, and maybe I'm crazy, I don't know. But in a deeper level, you know, these films are fundamental to who I am today. Matt says Aladdin is my favorite. The Renaissance era was great, which is why I look up to, you know, Michael Eisner. I know people don't like him for different reasons. And after Frank Wells died, you know, there were some problems, but I look up to him because of the Disney decade. Tarzan I know that, Jason. I know that for sure. Tarzan is your favorite. And Megan feels this way about the Disney Channel, the same way I feel about the Disney films. Yeah, which makes sense because you grew up kind of several years after me in the sense of when the Disney Channel was really popular. High School Musical was brand new coming out and all that sort of thing. My favorite Disney movie is Frozen and Frozen 2, The Lion King, Descendants 1 and 2 and 3, which of course started as Disney Channel movies as well. So I was going to say, in addition to just mentioning the classics, as far as the films and being thankful when we talk about that kind of thing, you know, Pixar, like Inside Out, Pixar is just so amazing to make us think about deeper things like Up, makes us think about grief and how short life is and all sorts of things. Marvel, you know, Marvel absolutely benefits from Star Wars. I almost said Marvel benefits from Star Wars. I'm going crazy. Marvel and Star Wars, but benefit from Disney. Yeah, MCU and Star Wars. MCU and Star Wars both benefit from Disney. There's no way we would get a film like Avengers Endgame if it was like Sony doing it all. It would be horrible if some. And I know there's some better, newer films. People like Venom 2 and all that. Yeah, what? Okay, that's fine. But like this would not be happening if it wasn't for Disney's involvement in the Marvel universe. We would have something like DC, where I don't know what they're doing at DC. Just as an aside note, don't get me wrong, I love John Krasinski, who played Jim from The Office. But the fact that DC just decided to cast him as Superman, I have no idea how he's going to be a good Superman. He just doesn't. I just don't picture Superman when I think of John Krasinski. So. Anyways, I don't. Anyways, okay. So to go back to Disney, I'm thankful for Disney's involvement because these things exist with them. You know, people could argue the opposite with Star Wars, who didn't like the way Star Wars took, but I don't actually blame Disney for some of those things. I blame Kathleen Kennedy. Again, different topic that we have talked about on this show before. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Matt says Spider-Man only works because Disney made a deal with Sony and saved it. Yeah, and that's very true. Very true. Hannah, Black Panther. John is just doing Superman's voice. That's really interesting. So it's going to be an animated film? I thought for sure he was doing live action. That's really good. That makes a lot more sense, Jason. And that just goes to show how much I know about DC. And I know you like DC, so thank you for bringing that up. Now I need to go back and look at that again. Okay, number 4 for me. So number 4 is the cast members. We're getting into like the more sentimental or more meaningful things for me, especially in these last 4. Number 4 is the cast members. You know, for a lot of times, if you're going on vacation, especially if you're just going once in your life, you're going to. It's easy to overlook cast members. You know, it's easy to take for granted the fact of what they do. You know, you're excited to go on, you know, Flight of Passage, and so you're not really worrying about the person who's pushing the buttons and getting things done for you, or saying, hey, right this way, stand on this dot and go in this room. You know, so it's easy to take for granted because you're excited about what you're experiencing. Or if you're not having a great time, it can be easy for some people, at least, to take cast members as like an outlet for their frustration when things don't go their way. You know, go to guest services and say, like, I paid a lot of money for this vacation, and you know what? Like, went wrong, and just like totally, you know, get angry at the cast member in front of you. But I'm really thankful for them, and just to get in the perspective of their minds, just to think of they've dreamed their entire lives about, you know, doing this, about being cast members in Walt Disney World, and you know, or Disneyland, or wherever it is around the world. They've dreamed their entire lives, most of them, about this, and you know, to just have this opportunity. And so, you know, to think of how I'm thankful for them, but I say it to you guys, you know, and some of you I know have already done this, but that you can thank cast members in so many amazing ways. It's sometimes it's just as simple as using their name. When I was at Magic Kingdom, I went into the Emporium, and there was a woman, I don't remember her name right now, but of course they have their name tags on them. And I came in the door, and say her name was Annie or something, and I wanted to know where something was, and I talked to her and I said, hey, thanks, Annie, so much for letting me know about that. And she's like, oh, you're welcome. And then, like, as I started to walk away, she's like, wait a minute, did you just say my name? And I was like, yeah, well, it's on your name tag. But she was not surprised that I knew her name. She was surprised that I stopped to actually acknowledge what is your name and to even say it. And it's such a simple thing, isn't it? But to be able to just use somebody's name and to address them in that way, it's really easy at Disney because it's such in bold letters that you can just, when somebody helps you to do anything, you can just say, hey, thanks, John, thanks, Mark, thanks, whoever it is. If it's even as simple as that, but to just stop if you have a time for a conversation, to get into their story just a little bit, to hear why did you come to Disney, you know, those types of things. My friend Steven that I spent some time with last month told me about that, how he gets to get to know people and just gets to ask them, you know, 3 questions that are really simple. One is just, you know, hey, what led you to Disney? And then the second one is, you know, what do you like the most about what you're doing right now? And then the third is, hey, after you're done here, what would you like to do next? And in asking those 3 simple questions in that short period of time, then he's gotten to know something about their past, their present, and their future, about this person that he didn't know before. And it's so simple, and people love, especially at Disney, to talk about what led them there and why they're there, what's their favorite theme. And it's so simple, but it just takes a moment to show someone that care and that respect. I especially think of those to thank those people who are doing the jobs that are in like those really boring positions or hard positions. When they used to have that, it was a Christian music festival. It was called Night of Joy, and I went to maybe 2 of them. It was really crazy, just like graduation nights where there are teenagers screaming all over the park, and it's really worse than ever, to be honest. And it's sad because you'd think, at least you know, someone who's in the church, I would like to say that night, you know, everyone was just over the top great, and because they're all Christian people, but you know, bad stuff was going on all over the place when there's filled with teenagers. You can imagine. So I remember being at Space Mountain. It was just like headache-inducing noise of people screaming their name. And when I got off, they were just standing there making sure everybody got off safely. And I mean, I could just, in that dim space of exiting Space Mountain, I was like, this just has to be like the worst job. And so I just like went back to him and I was just like, hey, thanks for everything. I know this probably isn't the most exciting job just standing here, but thank you for being willing to do this and, you know, just to ensure everybody's safety and like just doing those small little things. That's one of the things that I always think of like, man, that would just be the worst on that night, especially. Jason says, I always look at cast members' names tag and say hi, fill in the blank, and then bye, fill in the blank at the beginning and end of the interaction. Yeah, just something that simple. Right? Hannah says, I'm friends with cast members that used to work at the Disney store at the Mall of America. That would be a really big one, too. I wonder, I bet that most of the Disney stores now closed, but I bet the Mall of America is probably still open. I haven't checked. I haven't been out there in any recent years. All right. I have, 3 more. Number 3, going downward to number 1. So number 3 is just one word again, is environment. And again, not to keep referencing my book, but I guess I talk about a lot of the things that are important to me in the book. In one of the final chapters, I talk about this in Beyond the Pixie Dust, and that is the environment. One of my favorite things to do at Walt Disney World is to take in the environment of Walt Disney World. So most iconic is at night in the hub outside the castle to just sit there or on Main Street and just relax, just take in everything, you know, to just see it and experience it, and just watch as people go by and families and just relax with the coffee and stuff. But that's true of any place, you know, to just go to a place in World Showcase and just relax and not be in an agenda, not be like, I got to get to Test Track, or, you know, well, park's going to be closing, so I better beat the rush. No, just like to relax, even just be one of the last people out if possible. Just take your time to really just enjoy the environment, to look at the neon of Tomorrowland and then back, you know, to the hub and down Main Street and back to the castle, and just really be, again, some overlap with other things, inspired and encouraged by what you see there. So that environment. Does anybody have, I wanted to ask all of you on that, does anybody have a favorite environment? Not necessarily a favorite park, because I know that for some of you, but I mean like specific place that you're like, if I get the chance, I just go here, I sit here, and I like to just take things in at this place or in this area. Or maybe like for Hannah, maybe since you haven't been there, maybe there's a place you would like to go and do that. Like I just like to go and sit and see this.
And as you're writing that, I'll move on to the other ones because we're 1 minute over. I try to keep it to an hour so that if anybody's busy, you don't feel like this is like a 12-hour show or something. Just keep going on and on. Number two is memories. Number two is memories, and I need to grab something from over here. This is like my little. This is my. Actually, I'll grab this as I show you something. Matthew said, okay, so Matt says Wilderness Lodge lobby at Christmas time. And so that's kind of that environment type thing. And yeah, I know why. If you haven't had the chance to look at Wilderness Lodge lobby, please go out and check it out next time you're there. You can get a free bus from any resort if you're not staying there. So I'm going to show you guys, I want to see if anybody played this game. So when I talk about number two being memories, of course, memories of the parks, of course, memories of the movies like I talked about, but also just Disney gave me so many unique memories growing up, and growing up with a computer that had like MS-DOS. Does anybody remember back then that far where you'd type in executables, it was called? It'd be like type in bstone.exe, enter, and then it'll be like, it will load up the game, and it'll be like bit, this music and 8-bit music. And so I played a Disney game that I had never seen the movie, and there was a reason why. It never came out on VHS at the time I had played the game. I'm going to show you a short clip of the opening of the game and see if anybody, obviously you'll know what it is when it comes up, but see if anybody else played this. Yeah, so the Black Cauldron. Let me mute my own self. I'm going to be having an echo. So this was a lot. That was like the opening, and then you'd have little Terran, and he'd be walking. This was actually the 25th animated film by. That wasn't the film, of course. That was the game, but it was based upon the 25th animated film that Walt Disney came out with, the Black Cauldron. That's now available to watch. The film is available to watch on Disney Plus. But for a while, it hadn't come out because it didn't do so well in theaters. And so finally, for years, I played that game, the Black Cauldron, on the old MS-DOS and everything. And it was fun. Like, it was really, really hard. Yeah, Crystal remembers her older cousins playing that. She could tell from the sound alone. Yeah, it's so memorable. And like Gurgi, the little guy, he runs out, the little fuzzy guy, he runs out and he steals your apple. And he said, do you have any munchings and crunchings for your old pal Gurgi? There's like so many memorable things that happen, and it was really difficult. If you walk too far into the ocean, into the river, you get whisked away and you drown. You could die in like 400 ways in that game, just like a lot of games back then. It was really hard. Hannah remembers the game as well. So I played the game, but like there were so many. This was before like the internet, before AOL, AOL, America Online. Like you couldn't. It wasn't even dial-up, so it was like unfortunately, like I couldn't go online and like look up the secrets or the hidden like cheat codes or something like that. So I was like, I can't figure out how to get out of this jail cell. Like I can never figure out how to do anything in this game. It was really hard. So for whatever reason, when I was younger, of course, I think it was, let me see, I have it written down, 1998. So I'm not sure, I would have been maybe 16 or something like that. No, wait, no. What am I talking about? I would have been like 13 maybe. Anyways, I was younger, and they announced that on August 4th of 1998, they were finally going to come out with this movie on VHS. Now, for whatever reason, because I just didn't know anything else, I thought, well, maybe if I watch the movie, it will give me some sort of clue as to what I'm supposed to do in this game. Like in the jail cell, if they're in the jail cell in the movie, maybe it'll show like something that has to do with this game. Now, it never did that, and I don't know if I ever even actually officially beat the game because it was really difficult in the ending. But I remember that coming out, and because my brother and sister and I had all played this game so much, we were so excited about it. I remember my dad went out and bought the VHS and had like a little scavenger hunt one Saturday where we had to go around and find it. It was eventually found in our toy room. Inside one of our other game boxes, we had to like open up Monopoly, and it was in there.
but it was such a meaningful memory to me that then at our local video store, when they stopped using it, we asked for their poster, the Black Cauldron. So we actually have this is the only time it's ever come out on film. Of course, again, now you can watch it on Disney Plus anytime. I mean, I think it didn't do so well because it's kind of scary, with the Horned King who is over here. He's really really freaky, and he puts bodies into the cauldron and they come out as cauldron-born skeletons that are alive and all this. But if you haven't seen it, I wouldn't recommend necessarily watching with young kids. But just again, these memories like this of being younger and just experiencing in all sorts of ways things that then, like Crystal was just talking about, that all these years later you hear that music from Black Cauldron and you're like, oh yeah, that reminds me of being younger, and I remember this really difficult game and you had to use the arrow keys and then push these little buttons to interact with stuff on the walls, and just so crazy. So those are the memories of the past. But when I think about memories too, it's like crazy to think about how many memories will come in the future. And we can't imagine. I mean, we could try, but those memories that we're going to make, again, yes, in the parks, but also in other ways too. And even Hannah, she mentions it's not at the parks, but she has happy memories celebrating her birthday at the Disney store at the Mall of America. So going there and just, it's not in the parks, but just that memory of, hey, going with friends, family members, just being in that central place. That when it comes to that, it's not so much about Disney as it is, if we're really thinking about it, it's about the people that were there with us. Because some of those people aren't around anymore in some of those scenarios, right? Maybe you went with your family when you were younger and to the parks or something, or to the Disney store. And in Hannah's case, the Disney store is no longer open, I saw Jason say. So, it's like there was a place you used to go that was really meaningful, and now it's not there anymore. You can't get to that place. Or for some people, it's, you went with a group of people and now some of those people have died since then. And so there's that aspect to it too, of just looking back and realizing some of it, when it comes to the memories, Disney provided the space for something that wasn't necessarily even Disney itself. It was about something even deeper than that, which was the family, the friends, the people around us in that place and in that moment. So that actually really, I didn't necessarily think to talk about that piece, but that really leads me into the final thing, that number one on my list. And this could, I don't mean this in a cheesy way, because it's not like, oh, well, I felt like I had to put this on the list. I really mean this when I am saying this as my number one, and that is the community that Disney provides. And you see that in a lot of different ways. You see that that community when you're in the parks and everybody's having a good time. Like Walt said, you see all ages, all races having fun together. You see everybody enjoying themselves, and everybody, the cast members are all on board. There is that's a community, but even more than that, I've seen an additional layer of community, just like Matt was talking about earlier with their community, Married to a Disney Addict. To see the people here that I've interacted with, some of you that now I've been able to meet in person and spend time with recently. So I just want to go down the list of a couple of those people now, and some of them are here today, some of them aren't. But I'm actually most thankful for those relationships. And, from probably, like I mentioned earlier, one of the newest we have here, who's here with us tonight, Hannah. I'm thankful, and thank you for saying that, being thankful for part of the Disney community. Yeah, so I'm thankful for you joining in and being so supportive. You're always commenting, always liking all the posts. And the same with Matt and Crystal. Matt and Crystal are very, very supportive. They have a lot going on. They've got their own, you guys have your own stuff. You've got your own Instagram, and you've got your own page, and but you've pretty consistently been here, I think, at every single thing. And most of my posts you're liking, and you're you might be commenting, and to have that support is so vital, and it's so great to have this community. As you say, it's just it's a lot of times people feel negative in the world, or seem positive even, right, and say like, oh yeah, I'll support you, or I'll do this, and then nothing ever comes of it. But there is a community that is different here,
And it's so helpful. So one of the guys that's in here tonight, this is his first time here in the live show, but I mentioned him a few times, Jason. This is awesome. I don't know what it is yet, but he sent me a Christmas present here in the mail. I was thinking about opening. I'm glad that I realized what it was before I opened it, because I was like, "What is this package?" I was like, "Oh, I bet it's that thing Jason said he's going to send me." Jason sent me this, and I told him I'm going to wait until Christmas to open it. So you guys will all be able to find out what it is after Christmas. When I've set up my tree after Thanksgiving, I'm going to put it under my tree. I don't know, Jason, should I like wrap this in wrapping paper, or should I just leave it like this and set it under my tree? It might look better if I wrap it under wrapping paper. I don't know. I will not crush. Don't worry. Do not crush. So I will not crush. But Jason, thank you so much for what you do in not only supporting, but also, being a friend and being willing to send whatever this is, unless it's like a prank and like I open this up and one of those snakes pops out with confetti or something and like in my face, like then I'll be like, oh, that wasn't good or something. But no, thank you so much for that. And in the same way, I've met recently around here, I've met the Moliternos, who they actually live in my town, and I met them at the Campfield Fair. This great family. When I was in October, when I was there, I actually got to meet face to face some of these friends that I've only met here. And one of them is Rachel Coggins, who I interviewed. She gave me this magic band I'm wearing now. This is you can see the Carolwood Express there, or I should say the Walt Disney World Railroad actually here on this side. And then this side is Walt Disney with the Walt Disney World Railroad on it. I don't know how limited. It is a limited release. But I'm not sure how many specifically they made of these. I tried to look it up, but I couldn't quite find exactly how many. But she gave me this limited release magic band that she's had for a little while, and as a gift, passed it along. So again, I didn't expect anything meeting up, but was a great time spent with her in October. And in the same way, I met up with Ray and Anais Waydinger, and they also gave me a gift when I was there. This is one of the Walt Disney World 50 pins. These are also limited release, and they have different attractions or sections of parks that are represented. Of course, this is the main entrance of the park, but this is limited to 2,000, which is like almost unbelievable, because like to think they only made 2,000 of these, and I happen to own one of 2,000 in the world. Those limited release things are really crazy. Like it's hard to believe, but it's cool too to have something limited like that. So anyways, yeah, that's the community, the people that are out here, and all of those that support on even deeper levels in terms of kind of this team that I have that I bounce ideas off of. Megan, I don't know if she's still in here, but she was in here just a little bit ago. So some of the people like her and Nathaniel and others who I have kind of in this core team of a few people that I say, hey, I'm interviewing this person, like, what should I do? And I kind of have this private group that I send some thoughts out to them and whatnot. So, there are just so many people that in this community that are so helpful, and, more than growing up with the Disney movies, more than the parks, more than all of that. So thank all of you for what you guys do, and your friendship, your involvement. As I said, we will be back we'll be back next Monday with Jeff Dixon interview on Monday morning. But then we'll be back in a few weeks with some of those, with the Disney legend Tom Nabby. And then we'll have the Christmas episode on the 23rd. And then 27th, we'll have McNair. But in all of that, with the craziness of Christmas, I guess I don't know. And this is something I should always set up in advance, but I don't specifically know when the live show will be in December. But I need to figure that out, and maybe I'll figure it out this week. And at the beginning of December, I can post it. And hopefully sometime in December, we can all meet up here and in the craziness of things before it gets too crazy with Christmas, and do something Disney Christmassy type stuff. So, hey, thank all of you guys for staying on and commenting and sharing your thoughts. If you later on have any other thoughts about other things that you're thankful for in terms of Disney or just in general, share it with me. You guys, I think all of you have my contact info. At the very least, you have the messenger on this page
feel free to add me on, you know, my other page as well, my private page and stuff too. But hopefully we'll talk to all of you soon, and thank you guys so much for sticking on. See you soon.